You know, Niagara Falls, it's more than just a natural wonder. It's a magnet, a challenge for people who want to stare death right in the face. This is the story of one of those people, Robert Overacker, a man who believed a jet ski and a rocket-propelled parachute could help him conquer the falls, and all for a cause.
Let's just start with this because it sets the scene perfectly. We're not talking about a big splash here. From that height, about 180 feet up, the surface of the water might as well be solid concrete. It's just a brutal, simple law of physics, and for way too many people, it's the last thing they ever experience. So picture it, October 1st, 1995. You've got the roar of millions of gallons of water, crowds of tourists just looking on, probably thinking, what is that guy doing? And right in the middle of it all, one man on a jet ski, gunning the engine, heading straight for the abyss. This is it. This is the moment of truth for Robert Overacker. So you might be thinking this guy was just a thrill seeker, right? But it wasn't just some random act of recklessness. To really get why he did it, we've got to understand the man himself. Who was Robert Overacker, and what on earth was his mission?
Well, Robert Overacker was a 39-year-old classic car salesman from California. He was also a part-time stuntman, so he definitely had a flair for the dramatic. But this whole stunt, it had a purpose. He actually painted "Save the Homeless" on his jet ski. He truly believed that this incredibly dangerous act was the only way to get people to pay attention to a problem they'd rather just ignore.
7. Just let that sink in. 7 years. That's how long Robert Overacker spent planning this one single moment. This was no sudden impulse. It was an obsession, a meticulously calculated mission that he dedicated a huge chunk of his life to.
And you know, this wasn't something people were cheering him on for. His own friends, totally terrified for his life, had actually managed to talk him out of it twice before. But the pull of his goal, of his mission, it was just too strong. By October 1st, 1995, there was no turning back. Nothing was going to stop him. But here's the thing. Overacker, he wasn't the first person to feel that pull. Not by a long shot. He was just the latest in a long and often tragic line of people drawn to challenge the raw power of Niagara Falls. There is a strange, deadly fascination with this place. Okay, get ready for this number because it is staggering. Over 5,000. Since 1850, that's the estimated number of bodies that have been recovered from the water below the falls. Now, some are tragic accidents, some are suicides, and some are daredevils who just completely miscalculated the awesome power they were up against. And this isn't a new thing. We're talking centuries ago. Explorers felt this pull, a weird, almost hypnotic lure. It's been described as this unconquerable desire to just go with the waves. It's a phenomenon that's as powerful as the water itself, drawing people right to the edge and sometimes right over it. I mean, the history is just this wild mix of triumph and tragedy. You've got Annie Edson Taylor back in 1901, a 63-year-old teacher who was the first person to ever survive in a barrel. Amazing. But then in 1990, you have Kiker Jesse Sharp, who tried it and was just never seen again. Some guys, like Steve Trotter, tempted fate twice and lived to tell the tale. And others, like Nick Wallenda, decided to conquer the air above it. Every single point on this timeline is a story of incredible, mind-boggling risk. All right, so with all that history in mind, the triumphs, the tragedies, let's go back to Robert Overacker on that October day. He had a plan, right? One he'd spent 7 years perfecting. But a single catastrophic mistake was about to undo everything. The plan, on paper, actually sounded pretty simple, in theory. He'd ride the jet ski right to the very edge. Then, at the last possible second, he'd fire a special rocket-propelled parachute that was supposed to lift him up and away from the jet ski, letting him float gently down to the river. A clean, dramatic escape. But there was a problem. A huge, fatal problem. The one piece of equipment that absolutely, positively had to work didn't. In a tragic, almost unbelievable oversight, the parachute designed to save his life was never actually connected to his harness. See, Overacker didn't pack the parachute himself. He had no idea. He was completely unaware of the mistake. So as he went over the edge, he fired the rocket, and instead of lifting him to safety, the entire parachute just shot away from him, leaving him to fall. And the worst part? Watching it all happen, totally helpless on the shore, were his own brother and his best friend. It was all over in just a few seconds. But the aftermath? That's what created this haunting legacy, a story that serves as this powerful, tragic reminder of the razor-thin line between bravery and recklessness. And in what feels like a really cruel twist of modern life, the whole thing was caught on camera. A German tourist just happened to be filming at that exact moment. He captured everything, from the confident approach on the jet ski to the tragic failure of the parachute, documenting Robert Overacker's final seconds for the entire world to see. You know, for just a few moments, people on the shore actually thought he'd made it. They saw his body flailing in the rapids, and they thought he was swimming. But it was just a cruel illusion. It was the violent current tossing his body around. The crew of the Maid of the Mist tour boat recovered his body. He was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital. So today, his jet ski with Save the Homeless still painted on the side sits in a museum. And it's such a poignant exhibit. On the one hand, it's this testament to his incredible spirit and his genuine desire to make a difference. But on the other, it's a permanent memorial to a mission that ended in the most tragic way possible. And all of this leaves us with a really tough question, doesn't it? Here's a guy who planned for 7 years to do something incredibly dangerous, all for what he saw as a noble cause, but it cost him his life. So was it a courageous act of defiance, or was it just a reckless gamble? I guess the line between the two can be as fine and as unforgiving as the edge of the falls itself.